On today's episode of the Pathway to Wellbeing podcast, we're joined by the inspiring Sara Vatore, all the way from the East Coast of America. As a somatic coach and healer, Sara is passionate about body wisdom and helping others to tap into their innate ability to thrive, especially in today's complex world. We will dive into the fascinating practice of somatics, how it connects to our nervous system, and ways we can use our body's wisdom to lead healthier, more balanced lives. If you'd like to support Sacred You and keep receiving these valuable conversations, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, or check us out at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U, .love for more valuable resources. Enjoy the conversation and have a beautiful day. Welcome to today's session of the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. And with me today is the beautiful Sara Vatore, who's joining us all the way from the East Coast of the States. Welcome, Sara. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really thrilled to be here.
Yes, and I'm actually honoured to be talking to you. Something that I'm very interested in and love the concept and practice, and that's all about somatics. And we're going to be really talking about the body wisdom and how you access it and how we can wire ourselves to thrive, especially in today's world, which is such a neat thing. So can we start, Sara? Tell us about you, who you are, and what drove your passion to get into work.
Yes, love to start. Thank you so much. So I am the mother of two boys, and I've been running my business as a somatic coach and healer for the last 8 years. Before this, I was a guidance counselor in a high school, and I grew up really wired to be the good girl, to be the perfectionist, to never get in trouble, to always do it the right way. And when I stepped into my job as a guidance counselor after my master's program, I realized, like, oh no, what did I do? What am I getting myself into? And what started to happen as I was in that environment and overworking and doing a lot is my body started to break. And so that really was the first time where I really started to pay attention, because lots of things happened at once. It's that whole thing that if we don't listen to our body, it starts to get really loud. When we ignore it long enough, it really starts to flag our attention. And that's what kind of happened for me while I was working as in the high school. And at that time, I was starting a training, really diving deeply into the body, into the nervous system, and I was waking up. Started to really wake up from being very shut down. And there are two kinds of shutdown. We have shutdown where we can't get out of bed and we're depressed. And then there's a shutdown where we're stuck in an autopilot and a doing and an overriding. And that really had been my whole life. And so as I was simultaneously working and doing this training, I really started to wake up to my body and what was going on in my body and how much I ignored my body, and decided to take a medical leave from the work. I had been at the high school for 5 years, and that really was an opportunity to take care of and address all of the issues that were showing up in my body and really start to connect to wisdom of healing of our own body. All the doctors I was seeing in all these different ways were telling me that nothing was connected. So my back issue wasn't connected to my gynecological issue, which wasn't connected to my autoimmune issue, which et cetera, et cetera. And everyone was prescribing me different kinds of things. And I got very confused and overloaded with information, because for many of us perfectionist people pleasers, we look to authority to tell us what's wrong and what's right. And I was getting very confused because lots of people were saying lots of different things that were conflicting. And so I really started to listen to my body and honor the rhythms, because I no longer was working at the school, because so I could get up when I needed to, I could rest when I needed to, I could eat the foods that were nourishing when I needed to. And I started to heal, and I started to resolve a lot of what was going on, the dysfunction in my body. And that really fueled a fire within me to share with other people that we don't have to live in pain. Many of us are walking around in a lot of chronic pain and illness and discomfort and suppression of emotions. And there's another way to be here and to live. And there's another way to move through stuckness and a dysfunction or dysregulation in the body. And so through my own healing path, I really got excited about sharing the nervous system information, sharing about connective tissue health and wellness, and really spreading the message that we have these innate potentials that live deep within us that no one tells us about and it's not talked about. And we can really harness that so that we can be living in our optimum potential and have access to our optimum healing. And that might be in combination with traditional medicines and traditional providers, but there's a lot that we can do for ourselves that will make us just feel better in our bodies, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's what I love to talk about and geek out about, because the science to me is fascinating.
Oh, it would be. It's amazing. And, right now, if I can just take a moment just to honor you, Sarah, like,
Oh, thank you.
to bring your experience and your passion, podcast, and to the world, to our community and the greater world in general, because I love it when people share things from lived experience. But you haven't just learnt it in a textbook. You have lived it and you have come through it, and you've been able to put all your practices into practice. And now
Yes.
you're teaching others and helping others. So thank you ever.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
No problem. I'd love to go back into a couple of things that you said, and you talked about the nervous system. And even before that, let's go before that. So I've got two questions. Let's go back to the real basics, and I'd love to know, what does somatics actually mean?
Yeah.
So
Great. I'll dive off there. So soma, the root of somatics, soma means body in Greek. So somatics is the study, the understanding, the practice of being in a body, living in a body. And so many of us very much live in our heads and we ignore our bodies, or we're very connected to our bodies when there's dysfunction, when there's something wrong, when we're in pain. And so somatics, from my lens of really working with the body, is really understanding optimally how the body works so that we can harness its natural cycles and be able to live fully, have energy, be able to sleep when we need to, be able to feel creative when we want to, all of those different things. And the nervous system is at the foundation of understanding how the body works. We're mammals, and so we're wired for survival, and our nervous system is governing whether or not we are safe, whether or not our system is perceiving safety. And so because our sort of directive is to survive, whether or not our body feels safe, whether or not our nervous system is interpreting safety is very important. And then that then dictates our behavior. It dictates whether or not we can set a boundary. It dictates whether or not we feel comfortable in a new space, or putting ourselves out there in the world, or speaking our truth and our authenticity. And many of us we grow up in family systems where we have expectations of how we're supposed to show up. So we're wired to be safe, and we're also wired to connect and belong to whoever we grow up with as our caregivers. And so oftentimes we're compromising when we're little what our truth is, how we feel, in order to receive love from our family. And so working with our nervous system is understanding sort of our natural cycles of like feeling activated, having that increased heart rate and breath and tension in the body that can happen when we're sensing danger, right? That could just be fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. It could be actual danger, right? But any of those things will then start to show up in the body, and the nervous system does things. It increases these physiological components in the body. And when we're disconnected from those, when we don't know that those are happening, we just think stuff's wrong. We go into panic, we go into worry, we go into frustration. And so understanding the basics of our nervous system, how it's meant to operate, what happens when we're under stress and pressure, how our unique system shows up under those conditions can be instrumental in helping us shift and change in the directions that we want to head into.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's really amazing. I love how you say, you know, like most of us, which I really believe, and I, you know, put my hand up right now, live in today's world where we're just in our head, not connected to our bodies at all. We tend to disregard them until we get sick. So yeah. I really agree with you with that. I've experienced it myself without going into it too much here, because we're talking with you. And let's go into more, if I can, about the nervous system. You mentioned quite a bit about it, but well, yes. So does the nervous system influence our abilities to make decisions? And how can we actually tune in to our nervous system? Like, really, what's some practical steps that you do to tune into our nervous system that can help us?
Yeah, great. Two-part question. So I'm going to start with the second part, and then we'll spiral back around to the first part. But tuning into our nervous system starts with listening to the body. And so there are some basic categories of things our body automatically does that we're pretty shut down from, or we ignore a lot, that are easy places to start when we want to reconnect to our body. So our nervous system's language is the language of sensation. So starting to notice sensations inside the body. So that's called interoception. It's another sense that we have, just like smell, touch, taste, and sight. It's the ability to sense internally what's going on. And so that's noticing when your heart is increasing. It's noticing butterflies in your stomach, pulsing, twitching, heat, different vibrations. So we can really start to sense what the body is communicating. And so oftentimes at the beginning, it's pretty shut off, it's shut down. It's not something that we might be familiar with. So we can start to tune in these different ways. So one really easy thing to do is start to notice or listen when you have to go to the bathroom. Right? How many times are we sitting in a meeting and we're like, oh, just until the end of this meeting, or the meeting ends and then I'm like, oh, I'm just going to hold it until the next meeting, right? Like we're ignoring that body's natural communication. So starting to recognize those cues inside the body of having to pee, as silly as that sounds, is a really simple way to start to build a reconnection and listen, because we all have to go to the bathroom multiple times a day. It's something that can be a regular thing that you can start to pay attention to. Similarly to that, hunger cues. Eating when you're hungry, not eating if you're not hungry, paying attention more to, am I eating this because it's like 12:30 and we eat lunch at 12:30, or am I eating this because my body is actually letting me know that I'm hungry? So hunger cues are another form of communication. Sleep cues. Are you tired? Are you having brain fog as you're sitting and trying to write that email? Starting to notice when your body's shutting down or requiring or asking of you of rest. And there are lots of other categories to tune into, but for me, these are the three easiest ones: food, rest, and bathroom cues, to really start that communication. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, because again, how often do we not listen to those cues?
Yeah.
How often do we, for eating, eat when we're not hungry emotionally?
Yeah.
Often, like you said, is yes, we need to go to the bathroom, but no, I don't have the time. Where it doesn't take very much time, and it's a normal thing. Everyone has to do it. But no, I don't have the time now because I'm talking to whoever I'm talking to. Makes total sense. Thank you. And yes, totally.
Yeah.
think you've answered my other question too about the nervous system. How does it really influence our daily decision making?
Yeah, yeah. And in that sense, it's governing whether or not we feel safe. If our body is deeming something not safe, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who feel nervous about being on a podcast. So, for example, if I'm having a conversation with you for a podcast, but I'm feeling nervous about that, if my body's not feeling 100% safe, I'm going to start to pump more adrenaline. I'm going to start to pump more cortisol in my body, and my body's survival responses are going to take more preference in my system than my access to my intellect. So if I'm in a survival response, if I'm activated, even if it's a low level, that's going to interrupt my ability to think clearly, to focus, and to access my knowledge. And so I work a lot. I'm a peak performance coach also. So I work a lot with athletes and performers and entrepreneurs who have blocks or fears. And it's very common when you're under pressure to lose all access to your skill, whether you're an athlete or whether you've got a lot to share as an entrepreneur. And so going blank, if you ever took tests growing up and you studied a lot for them, and then you sit down at your test to take your test and you know the material and you sit down and you get the test and then you don't remember anything, that's your nervous system getting in the way. It's working so hard to let you know that there's danger, that it's taking away our ability to function well. And it's why when we're really talking about wellness and health, this nervous system conversation is very important, because we want our nervous system working smoothly. We want to be able to come out of survival responses when they're happening, when we need to focus or concentrate or do a thing. Survival responses are important when we are actually in danger. We want our bodies to run us away from the danger. We want our arms to throw up in front of our face when there's a ball coming at us, right? There are things that are happening in our body with those responses that are important. It's just not good to have those responses going off all the time in our bodies. So if you identify listening as someone who's super stressed out or like busy, like always doing and can't stop, or when you go to sleep at night, even though you should be exhausted, you're still churning a little bit, still running revved up, that's an indication like that your nervous system has been overworking, and we need to bring in some healing and some soothing so that it can come back and work more efficiently, because it's going to give you more energy. Like our nervous system's responsible for our rest. Lots of people are talking about that, right? So to have really nice rest, but our nervous system working well is also responsible for our creativity. It's life force energy. It's get up in the morning and have a good day and have the ability to be creative and work hard, and then come home and be tired and rest. And so bringing in health into the system then will allow you to do all the things you want to do and hold all the pieces. If you're running a business or you have a family or you're doing lots of these different layers, when our nervous system is working smoothly, then it's not getting in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just taking a moment just to take all that in, because you're talking my language. I get it. I totally get that.
Awesome.
What about connective tissue? Is that different to our nervous system? And what role does connective tissue have to play in our emotions?
Yes, I love talking about the connective tissue. I am trained in something called the MELT method, which works with our connective tissue system, and it uses these little rubber balls and super soft foam rollers, and it works to hydrate our connective tissue. So our connective tissue is a 3D fluid matrix, and it houses all of our muscles and bones. And back in the day, like when they would excavate out cadavers or do any sort of dissections, they would slop all the connective tissue in buckets and throw it away. They thought it was really unimportant. And over the last 12 to 15 years, there's been so much more research within this field of really understanding that this is the information highway. This fluid matrix has and houses all of the nervous system receptors in the fluid. And so it's what's communicating to our brain, to our body, whether or not we're safe, whether or not we're in pain, whether or not we're having a digestive issue. And so as we're aging, and also from repetitive movements, like we're both sitting on our butts right now in our seats, or like looking down at our phones. And so what that does is it compresses the tissue, and the tissue gets very dehydrated. So this is a natural thing that happens as we get older, but also just from the way we live our lives, sitting in cars, sitting at our desks, not being very mobile, or being extra mobile, holding those same yoga stretches every single day in the same way, right? All of that repetition is going to break down the integrity of the tissue. And so what happens is it creates what the creator of Melt calls stuck stress. And so what that is the dehydrated bits in our body. So if you touch in your shoulders and you've got knots, or you wake up in the morning and you've got a stiff back, or you're achy when you first wake up, but then you move around, like we've normalized in our world being in pain is like just a normal thing. Like we wake up, I'm old, I'm hurt. That's just a thing. And Melt is really all about helping people understand that the more we can help flush out our connective tissue and keep it really hydrated, the better everything works. And then we have better balance, we have better alignment physically in our structure, we have less pain and discomfort, our joints get to be stabilized, our digestive system works way better, we sleep at night without having to get up 3 or 4 times to pee, we actually feel hydrated and not just drink a lot of water and pee a lot. Because a lot of us think we're hydrating and we just drinking lots of water and it's just going right through us. It's not absorbing into the tissues. And so Melt is a modality, and there are some other fascial modalities as well, but that flush the tissue system so that you have more space in your body and that your nervous system is balanced. So I love Melt for people who struggle to meditate or struggle to calm down, because you get to do a thing and then it brings your whole body into sort of this parasympathetic response, which means then I can rest, I can sleep well, I can digest my food well. And so if you're someone who revs or gets really stuck up in the churning of the busyness and fullness and stressfulness of life, this is a really amazing resource to help calm your body, but also physically help you feel better. I found it because I was struggling with a lot of this chronic illness, and I've had a number of falls. I'm hypermobile, so sometimes my body gives out and I've fallen. It's a whole other pattern thing. I could have a whole conversation about patterns. And Melt for me is the only thing that takes the edge off of when I've had serious injury, of bringing in relief. And then it also facilitates healing, because our nervous system and our connective tissue system is very responsible for whether or not we're healing, and we're healing quickly. And so if our connective tissue system is really flowing in an easeful way, then everything is going to work better in your body, and you're going to heal things at a faster rate than if you weren't using that kind of method.
Very interesting, isn't it?
It's fascinating.
Yes, it is. It's a whole different language. And again,
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. It really makes everything, it really makes sense, everything that you think.
Yeah. And I think the other really important piece, like around the fascia, is that so our embodiment, like how we be and how we feel, like when I'm confident, like my tissues in my body, like my structure is doing something specific. If I'm feeling embarrassed or like unsure, my tissues, my body automatically goes into these patterns that it's familiar with. And so Melt, or any kind of like working with the body in this way, working with somatics, is a way that we're conditioning the body to build different kinds of patterns so we can feel physically better. Because if my body automatically goes into shame a lot, I'm going to feel more shame day to day than if I'm not doing that in my structure. And so, yeah, it becomes really interesting when we start to add the body into the equation, when we've just really focused on our mind.
Yes, it becomes very interesting. And it makes so much sense. We are in this body. Without the body, we wouldn't have the mind. We wouldn't be here.
It's right.
But we disregard it so very much now. So especially
Yes,
in today's world, where I think this is becoming the pandemic. We're becoming human doings instead of beings, and just
exactly.
do and not stop and listen to our bodies. And can
Yes.
I ask you, Sarah, do you have any stories, any experiences that you would like to share personally of when you were able to tune in to your body wisdom and the wisdom of your body and how it has helped you overcome challenging situations and to be able to thrive in this world?
That you said that, and I'm getting like a montage of all that. There's so many different kinds of examples within myself, and then just also having my hands on bodies and working on bodies and seeing just that amazing natural resolution and recalibration that can happen in the body when the body feels safe enough. One of the things that I'll share that has been key in how I am is in living with my husband. I live with a very fiery Italian man who grew up in the Bronx, and he's an Aries, and he has very big anger energy. And what I've noticed really big shift in my system is he's stomping around all the live long day, can't find his keys, can't find his socks. He's not mad at me, he's mad at the world. And for the most of our relationship, been together 15 years, I would in my body and he can't find things and I'm all having a response because I'm worried he can't find things and I'm scrambling to help him find things. And what I've been able to do is learn over time to notice that feeling in my body, to stop it, to calm my body down. And now, over years of conditioning my system, I don't join with him in his frenetic. He can be in his stuff, and my physical body has no more response. It's taken a long time to work on, but it's possible to change when we're in these automatic reactions in the face of conflict, in the face of different kinds of emotions. Direct physical story is because I have fallen a lot. I have healing protocols that I do at night, and it's stuff that I also work with and teach my clients, where you can create what I call sessioning yourself, where you're giving yourself a session and you really create the space for your body in a lying down position, be able to unwind or unfurl any of what's hooked or stuck. And there was a time a couple of years ago where I really, because I'm hypermobile, I roll my ankles quite a bit. And so then that can put me out for weeks, or really bad sprain. As a kid, I would break my ankles all the time. And more recently, I had this experience where I was like, it happened. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to be out for 6 weeks. This is another one of those things. And at night, I called in my guides. I opened up to the quantum. I sessioned myself and really activated my healing potentials. And I woke up and I was completely fine. So pain in the body is highly charged, dense energy. And so we can learn how to move it, dissipate it. It's when we feel stuck, when we feel blocked, when we're in pain, everyone thinks that it's stagnant because it's miserable and we feel stuck or trapped, but it's actually moving at this rapid rate. And so there are these ways that we can tune into not only like our fluid system, but like our nervous system, and be able to allow things to come into completion so that they then heal and resolve. So those are two examples.
Just two. And I'm sure there's many more. Again, I agree with you, especially about the pain. Can you imagine how different the world would be if everyone realized what pain actually is and the messages that the body's trying to give us, instead of suppressing the pain, putting a band-aid, shoving it down and going to get healed that we do, instead of tuning into it.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating, Sarah. I really think what you do is absolutely fascinating. And I know I've honored you and I'd like to do it again, just because, you are a fascinating person and we could sit here and talk all day, but please.
We really could.
We could. Please do come back and things.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much to talk about. Now, as well as pain, which is a huge symptom.
Yes.
Is there any other signs, common signs, that we can all really recognize easily that our nervous system is completely out of whack,
Yeah.
out of balance. And what can we do about it?
Yeah. So some of the signs would be trouble sleeping, difficulty with your digestion. If you have tummy issues, you get tummy aches, just generally feeling stressed out. If you like are finding yourself saying things like, oh my God, there's so much going on, or I'm so overwhelmed, or I'm so stressed out. A lot of us tend to join others in stressing out or like talking about how miserable things are. If you're doing, that's another sign that there might be some things that are off. If you're in pain or discomfort or feel really exhausted, if you feel like you don't really know what you like or you enjoy, or you're feeling blah or flat, those are other signs. What I find a lot is I get people who say that they're confused or like fuzzy or having memory issues. Those are other sort of indications that the system is a little bit overloaded, just a little, and it might need some support. So those are some of the common ones. Other things that people would report, or that I know I'm more blown out when I have less patience, like with my kiddos, we homeschool my youngest. If I'm snapping when I don't usually, or I'm feeling more reactive, that's a sign for me that, well, I need to do a practice or take some space for myself or catch it. So there are things that we can start to learn within our own bodies that are our early warning signs. For me also, I get a little bit of, I might get sick. People might get sick often. If you're getting sick a lot, or you're getting sick after big deadlines or big things, like if you're running a workshop or have put on a big program and then you're getting sick afterwards, that's another sign that your capacity might not be quite where it needs to be in your nervous system to hold all of what you're doing. So those are some of the common signs. And yeah.
Yes, that's a signs that I think the entire population live with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's true. And the resolving piece for me comes back to creating space. And it always comes back to creating space, because we're not going to be able to listen to our body or make any changes if we're not creating space to do. And so most people, when I start to talk about, my whole business is based around creating space for people, because I need it as a mom of two, and homeschooling, running my own business is what I need most. It's what I help people with. But creating space does not have to be a whole weekend or a whole day. What I mean is, I talk about microdosing space with my clients. Like, what ways are we in teeny tiny little bits finding moments to check in and ask, what do I need right now? So for anyone listening, is a place to start setting an alarm in your phone that goes off 3 to 5 times a day that literally asks you, what do I need right now? So that you're pausing. It's 1 minute. Check in, notice, do you have to pee? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need something to eat? Do you need to stand up and just move for a second? Starting to reconnect to actually tuning into what we want. Because a lot of times when we're starting this initial inquiry, we've been very disconnected for so long. You might not know what you need. You might not know what is that next step, because we're just so used to filling the space. So carving out these micro moments for yourself. I remember when my youngest was a baby, and no matter what kind of screaming fit it took to get him outside in the car, the 45 seconds after I buckled him in his car seat, around that I walked to my front seat, was my time. I took a breath, even if he was still screaming. I took a breath, I looked at the birds, I felt my feet, I found my body again, and that was a moment. So if we're interrupting, we're working to interrupt the automatic patterns that our nervous systems get stuck in. And so micro moments, or creating an hour or an afternoon once a week, really looking at where you can build in these times and spaces for yourself so that then in those spaces, we're really doing what I call nourishing our nervous system, filling that time with things that are going to be supportive for healing this massive regulator in our body. This is what determines our capacity and whether or not we're well and whether or not we're functioning. And so this is about our health. This is about like our optimal potential.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And it makes so much sense, doesn't it? It's so easy.
Yeah.
We don't always listen to it. We don't always practice it because we live in this world and the challenge is living in this world. But it makes so much sense. Just take a moment just to tune in to your body and just ask your body what it wants. I love the most simplest advice that can be so, so powerful. And we really listen to our bodies.
Yeah.
We can do that. And Sarah, I know you also do dream work within your business and you help with that. So let's go into that. Tell us, how does dream work tie into somatic healing?
I am just obsessed with dream work. This is a personal passion of mine. It's not something that I was formally trained in at all. It's something that I feel very ancestrally connected to. All of my ancestry are Ashkenazi Jews from the Lithuanian era, and there is just a very rich dreaming practice in Jewish heritage. And so it's something that has come through for me in that way and to self-study. But there are brilliant teachers that I've taken courses from and read books from, who, one in particularly, her name is Leslie, and she looks at our nervous system state. So oftentimes what we're not processing in our daytime that doesn't feel safe enough to process while we're waking gets processed at night while we're sleeping. And so we might have dreams where we're being chased and we're running away. That's your body's trying to complete a flight response, right? Of feeling like there's danger. Or in our dream space, we might fight someone or attack someone or even kill someone. That's our body and our nervous system's way of trying to process and complete protective responses that haven't been able to be expressed. So the dream space at night becomes this multi-dimensional playground for our unconscious in our psyche, but also our unconscious in our nervous system to come out and be in healing and be in expression. And so the last 3 years of my business have been all about following threads that light me up and doing things and offering things that I get really excited about. And I just love doing dream work. It's such a powerful portal to looking at things in different ways and helping our brains see and process upsetting things in creative angles that often dissipate some of the high charge sort of trauma energy around it, so we can look at things differently.
And again, so true. Thank you for sharing that. Our dreams will tell us exactly what we need to know.
Yeah.
Exactly what we're not dealing with.
That.
It's just really listening to that. And I'd love to know, even in today's age, there is so much around, especially in the, the metaphysical and everything else, but there's still a lot of skeptics out there that don't believe in somatic practices or intuitive healing practices because there's no science backup. But tell us about that. Do you have any knowledge about the science and somatic?
Yeah, what's just so amazing around the technological boom that we are in is the research and the science has just been in such an expansive exponential growth. And I would, in terms of the body and how the nervous system works, but also in terms of consciousness and the science behind consciousness and how thought is energy and how that's traveling and moving. And so there is tons of scientific information and studies being done now around our nervous system responses, connective tissue. Actually was just last week there's an amazing anatomist who has been doing dissections of the body for the last 18 years and teaching about fascia and connective tissue. And he did what he called the nerve tour. And it was a 5.5 hour presentation on, he did this complete dissection of a cadaver, and we got to see just the nervous system, like the nerve communication system. It was amazing. And again, I like to geek out on this stuff. So I am very spiritual. And then there's all the science stuff that gets woven in. So he was really talking about and looking at the wholeness of our system, this whole communication, how everything is working and flowing together. And this was through his research. He was in the literal body, in the tissues, in the bones, in the nerves, and looking at how things are woven and connected. So there is a lot of research around our fight, flight, and freeze responses. There's a lot of information now around the fascial science. There's a lot of really fascinating information and research around epigenetics and how we are patterned and imprinted as we are growing in our embryo state within the mother's womb. And so there's just the science right now in so many of these different realms are really expanding. And so there's plenty of directions, if you're interested in any of those things, to go down rabbit holes and find really amazing research. Heart Math Institute is doing fabulous stuff on measuring heart frequency and what the body does in different emotional states. So you can look at graphs and charts, checking out Gil Henley with some of the fascial information. Sue Hitzman, who is the creator of MELT, did an enormous study around working with the connective tissue and MELT and patients who struggle with back issues and healing back pain. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are lots of other amazing scientists who are doing really cool things and talking about this is how the body works. This is not out there stuff. This is literally like our nervous system works in a particular way. Our connective tissue system works in a particular way. We're not making it up. It's been measured and observed, and it's what we know right now, right? And then in 10 years, let's have this conversation and see where it's gone. But for now, we have some really amazing information available at our fingertips.
Isn't that incredible information? Thank you for answering that
Yeah.
one. And I'm just sitting here and I agree with you. I feel it. I totally get it about geeking out on seeing the actual nervous system in bodies. It would be really amazing. And I'm sure if they haven't done it already, to be able to see the nervous system when it's actually functioning. And
Oh yeah.
it would, yeah, it's incredible. That's why I just love talking to you. And now you mentioned genetics or epigenetics. How does genetics, our genetic makeup, what role does that have with somatic healing?
Yeah, so we are born into this world conditioned and primed to survive in our parents' realities. So when we're growing in the womb, we are one with our mother. We don't know as we're growing that we're separate. So our body is developing based on the combination of our father and our mother and all of what they went through. So in my case, I'll just speak personally, both my parents grew up in really abusive households in different ways. And so they worked really hard to make sure that we had a very safe and loving and caring environment. They really broke some generational stuff. But I came out of the womb like on alert. I never wanted to get in trouble. My mom would talk about how I would crawl towards the light and outlet. They never had to put the little outlet things on the covers because I would just crawl towards it and my mom would look at me and she said I would turn the other way. So we are primed to survive in our parents' environments. And so our genetics influence our ancestry. And a lot of the research is showing at least we're carrying 7 generations back and 7 generations forward of patterns of how our ancestry and families have survived, then we are conditioned to have those responses. And then we grow up in our families and we have our own experiences, and those experiences reinforce often the patterns that we initially started with. So a lot of times I work with a lot of people who will say to me, I had a fine childhood. There wasn't any abuse. Like, I was cared for. I wasn't neglected, but I still have all these issues. And a lot of times the issues that we're holding or the challenges that we have in our personalities are stemming from ancestral patterns that are stacked and are just there in our bodies because that's all that we know. But the really cool thing about all of this and what I geek out about is that our body is regenerative. We are constantly shedding cells and rebuilding new ones. We can repattern and reprogram ourselves. We can repattern and reprogram our nervous system to align to its natural flow of health. And our central line, where our spinal cord is, houses cerebral spinal fluid, and that fluid has life force in it. That has our optimum health and potency and potential. And there are ways that we can learn to tune into that fluid and to help that fluid promote and facilitate healing and repatterning. So anything that's like we get stuck with from our family systems, we're not really stuck. We have the power and ability. It's not easy. This isn't like an overnight thing. I wake up and I'm fine, but with choice and awareness and attention and intention, we really can have some very significant healing and repatterning so that we can harness this optimum potential and capacity in our bodies.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah.
And Sara, I'd love to know if your body can speak in words right now, what would it say to you about your wellness, your current state of wellness?
So it's definitely saying slow down. I am healing a major fall since January on my tailbones. I'm about 90% healthy, but there are definitely ways where my body I've slowed down quite a bit, but it's still like slower. Do you hear me? A little slower. You booked this at 8:30 at night. What were you thinking? Slow down. And I hear her. And there are ways. I think what's really important is that I don't pretend that you can now just, anyone listening, take all day long and listen to your body, right? This is not like, I get that lives are full and busy, and there are times that require us to override our needs or require us to override and be busy and full and keep to, like, I moved my son into college yesterday. I was tired yesterday. I had to do that. That was on the schedule. There was no shifting or moving that around. And so I took care of myself afterwards. I gave myself time to grieve. I gave myself time to have a process. I'm giving myself the week to feel out of sorts. So there are ways that when we do override or we ignore or we don't listen sometimes, that we then can be in repair. And so my body, as I tuned in just then, was very aware that I am actively in repair right now from yesterday. And I can see some of the spaciousness that my weekend is bringing based on how I've structured my schedule.
Yeah, it's nice when that happens. I think when our bodies just say, just take some time out. And when we listen to it, it's even more incredible.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where the repair comes in, when we actually listen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we don't listen to it, and it sends a stronger message and a stronger message and a stronger message until one day we have to listen.
Yes.
And hopefully it's not too late by then. So thank you for sharing that, for your personal experience. And what about with others? What's been some of the most rewarding aspects or the rewarding experiences of working with other people, with entrepreneurs and leaders and sports people within your practice?
Oh, so much. It's my favorite thing to have sessions with people. I'm in love with my hands-on work, but I also work virtually one-on-one somatic or peak performance coaching. And my favorite things to hear from clients is, I did this big thing and I didn't get sick. Or I was able to fall asleep after I was interviewed on TV. Like when they are reporting capacity shift. I had lots of patience with my kids after a full day of work. All of that stuff just lights me up, how things get to change and be different and feel better. Or I just slept the last month and I didn't have any pain. A lot of times I hear from my melt clients months after, even years after, that I'm still doing the thing and this is amazing and my body doesn't hurt. And then I would say on the table, there's amazing things that happen when the body is just given the opportunity to be held and unwind and express. And so I've been honored and privileged enough to be holding space for people completing protective programs that the body hasn't been able to express. So I did a 3-night session in a row with my husband after he had a very serious car accident, and witnessing the body move through some of these completion, like his foot was trying to step on the brake because he didn't his car got totaled. And so his foot worked something out the first night. And then the second night he worked his chest with the seatbelt, was trying to escape out. It was really stuck, and that worked out. And I got to witness this amazing healing of the body being able to have all this highly charged energy that he wasn't able to express because airbag went off. He got trapped in the car, right? That's freeze. And so then the body needs to be able to try to escape, to try to finish that so it doesn't get stuck and trapped in our bodies, because that's what causes pain. It's why 2 people can walk away from the same car accident and one person can hold a lot of pain in their body and another person might not. It depends on how our nervous system is metabolizing and being able to express these things. So I've had numerous experiences, sessions with people on tables where bodies are completing these protective programs, and particularly women. I work a lot with women who might have had challenging births with their children, and so the body is trying to work out the birth, or they've had C-sections and their body wasn't able to do the natural childbirthing process. So on the table, the body starts to try to push. It moves into that experience so it can do what it wasn't able to do when it was under anesthesia and having pregnancy. So the body is fascinating. So anything that is allowing clients to have more space, to have more choice, to set boundaries. I get so excited when someone text messages me and says, I said no to the thing and I didn't feel guilty. I celebrate that one all day long. That's a big one. Stopping people pleasing, being able to put themselves out there. When we start to address the body, things that we feel blocked or stuck on shift so quickly. It's just phenomenal.
Thank you. And again, sharing that, because it is phenomenal. All the messages that the body stores because it needs to, all we have to do is tune into it. Now, you mentioned working with people on the table, which would be amazing for anyone who lives in your area. But what about remotely? And do you...
Yeah.
Yes, tell us what you do with, but how can you help people online?
Yeah, so I do this in a couple of different ways. So one, I have more of a traditional, what I would call somatic or peak performance coaching track, where it's a number of months of commitment because the body takes some time to rewire and repattern. And we're really diving deeply into the nervous system, the brain, the mind, how these things work separately, how they come together and impact each other, and how those things are impacting how you're showing up. So for people who are wanting to shift behaviors, I work a lot with parents who might have kids, navigating kids with big emotions, or wanting more patience, or entrepreneurs who are juggling a lot of things, people who are navigating imposter syndrome or confidence issues, or feeling stuck or blocked or fear. These sessions are designed to help you understand how your nervous system works, how to reconnect, really working on through homework assignments and practices and my frameworks, really understanding these things and putting into practice and getting the body to repattern and recondition. So a lot of my clients are navigating chronic illness, who are trying to leave full-time jobs and start their own businesses. All of those different pieces, we need to have capacity in our bodies, and we need to not be sick or in pain. And so depending on what you're showing up with those sessions, we might do some melt method work where you're getting the materials, and I'm showing you how to do that right online, because that's the awesome thing about melt. You purchase the materials no matter where you are in the world, and I can show you all the sequences, and then you have them, you have the recordings, and you're able to do this as a self-care practice on your own. And then the second way that I work online is through, so my hands-on work is called somatic integration work, somatic integration sessions, and I offer those virtually. And so that would be an energetic experience, an energetic session where we're all connected energetically. We are living as one, like we're one whole earth. And my energy right now, as I'm sitting here with you, we're connected and sharing a toroidal field. My toroidal field is making one with yours, and we're sharing this co-creative one. And then anyone listening in, we're making a bigger, wider one, grouping all of those in together. So when we work online virtually for a healing session, I would be doing virtual hands-on work with your system. And so there's a number of ways that I do that. On my end, you'd be lying down in your bed comfortably, and you can close your eyes and go to sleep. I play bilateral music for you and then bring you through some guided visualizations, some statements, some activation statements where we're activating the healing potentials in your body. I'm then doing hands-on work, working with your cranial sacral fluid system, working with your nervous system, working with the fascial, the connective tissue system, as you're just allowing things to move through. So that's how you can receive healing while in a virtual space.
And that would be absolutely amazing. We want to check that out. And for anyone who is watching or listening to our podcast today, do yourself a favor and click on the links below and check out Sarah's website, connect with her, experience this amazing healing, because it would be. I've had similar healings here in Australia, but I haven't experienced Sarah's yet. There will be a day. Thank you so much, Sarah. Like I said, it has been a real honor to talk to you. We could go into this so much more. But before we go, is there any other questions that I could have asked you? And how would you answer?
Your questions were so thorough. I loved receiving them beforehand. It was like, oh, you really love the set. Like I could tell you were interested in the topic. So it's so fun. No other questions. I think the last thing that I want to name is that the body needs to feel safe to slow down. And that just was coming as we were talking, this idea of it's safe to slow down. So for people who are listening who feel like it's hard to slow down or it's hard to stop, or when you do, you can't sit still, or you're scrolling, or you're finding yourself numbing out on Netflix or screens, that working with the mantra, it's safe to slow down, working with helping soothe your nervous system to feel safe to start to slow down, because a lot of us have that ancestral pattern of not being able to stop because it's not safe. And now it is safe. And so helping our bodies, and for some of us listening, so some people listening, it might not be safe to live in the body that you live in. So I definitely want to acknowledge that. And there are ways that we can find our own window of tolerance, our own window of what our body feels when it's calm and centered and grounded. And so getting curious about what that is for you when you feel good, because that way when stuff's challenging, it will be easier to find that place.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Very much. It has been a wealth of knowledge. A wealth of passion. I can feel your passion, even though we're on the opposite side of the world.
So fun.
You are certainly a person, I said, who lives what you practice. You have gone through it, you have lived it, you've been able to transform your life by connecting with the messages that your body's giving you.
Yeah.
Even though we still have things happen, and you're
Sure.
more human, we still have things happen. We do fall over, we do get stressed out, we do all this stuff. We live in this world. But you, Sarah, are a person that really, truly lives what you speak.
Thank you.
He's
I
a
appreciate
walking example of when we tune in to our bodies, and we can thrive when we tune into the wisdom of our bodies. So we
Yes, thank you.
thank you so very much. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
I'd love to come back. Thank you.
Oh my, what an amazing conversation with Sarah. I really do hope that you enjoyed it and took lots of notes. Now, if you would like to support Sacred You to really help us, click on the subscribe button, or like the video, or even check us out at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U.love, for more valuable resources for our other podcasts and everything else that we share with the world. Have a beautiful day, and we will see you next time.